Bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
Yeah. So, 158, this is part two. So we didn't do the shooting the shit earlier on the previous episode because we just went right into it with Rusher and Horn. And I thought the first episode, part one, was absolutely fantastic, talking about their SAR missions in the previous year, that they gave a lot of detail, probably a lot of stuff that people didn't know about. And just, they were all out and they were fun. They were a lot of fun. So we have part two coming tonight about wildfires. So what'd you think about part one?
Well, like you said, I thought that you got a perspective and a level of detail that you don't get in the little ranger reports or news reports we find online. But what really was striking to me, and it became apparent as the podcast progressed, is that these guys are like brothers. They are really, really tight. All of them, all the Rangers are really tight. And that's because they're put in these really, high intensity situations. At least to us, a rescue like that would be high intensity, where battling a firefighter would be. But these guys, that's what they do all the time. I think they're out doing that stuff more often than we really know about. And they're just really, really a tight group and a great group.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of these guys.
Yeah.
So,
see them on the trail.
Yeah.
Give them a hard cider and chug it down with them.
Well, I don't know if they can drink on the job, Stosh.
All right. So big question of the year, beginning of the year. Why do you hike, Ted?
Because artificial intelligence tells me to.
Oh, okay.
No,
Right.
I don't know. I hike I'm somewhat embarrassed to admit I hike more now because I can't do the things that I used to do. So hiking is kind of like the, adaptation of the injuries and aging process that I've gone through. And you can, go out, and I guess mentally why I hike now is just to get away from the daily distractions and the daily intensity of people texting you, emailing you, pinging you left and right all day long. You go out for a day in the Catskills or for a long hike elsewhere, and you can totally unplug and regenerate.
I like that. Yeah. I started doing the same thing. Actually, to me, it was more about the views. I am a view guy where I just want to get to that viewpoint and just sit there and just awe myself and kind of reset myself.
Yeah, it's the journey, man. It's the journey to that viewpoint. All these views in the Catskills. I mean, it's not a mountain range in the Catskills that has a lot of like prominence to it, if you will. It's everything is between that 3,500 and 4,000 foot level, right? It's not like where you go to some other places and there's just a lot more, jaggedness and up and down. So the way the Catskills were formed, obviously, is influenced the views that we see when we get there. I like to hike under the canopy. I like looking at the rocks. I mean, you look at the rocks, you see several different histories revealed. You see the history of the Great Catskill Delta, and then you see the history of the glacier, the ice sheets coming through, and then what the meltwater did. All of that very fascinating.
Yeah, but I still do it for the views, man. I love that all brings it into one big awesome journey, but then that view is just like boom. And that's me.
What do you do when you go to a place like Eagle, right? Eagle, no views.
I still love it. That awesome walk after going down Haynes and going up Eagle is one of those secluded walks that I do actually love to do for the rush of nature and just to see around the deciduous trees and stuff like that. So,
yeah, Mike Kudish would tell you that's one of the longest contiguous stretches of first growth in the Catskills.
Yeah. And it's fantastic, and especially, in the summer. Eagle is one of those things of where the ferns are just right with you. And it's just the tree, everything is just magical summerness in the summer.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Eagle, I was there yesterday.
Nice. Was it beautiful?
Yeah, it was. All things considered, it was a great day to be out in the Catskills yesterday, hiking on the eve of the storm that was supposed to be coming through, hiking old snow, and it was a good day.
Nice. So Tad hikes for the journey. I hike for the views. So then maybe that's why we're at that viewpoint so much at Catskill High Peak. You're like, yeah, let's get out of here and let's get to the woods.
Yeah, I've been there so many times.
So have I. But I can never get enough of these views. I'm just always like, God damn. Always. You always find something different, especially in the winter, man, when you're looking. Like you talk about the geology, seeing the rocks. We spotted that one little slide over there that we're not going to talk about, but just spotting different parts, like, ooh, look at that little shelf that I didn't know was sitting over there on Sugarloaf or,
Yeah. Well, I think Catskill High Peak is one of the Catskill gems. Probably doesn't get as much respect as it should.
Yeah, because it's so long. So, yeah. So let's break into some news. This is a big news event that has happened in the past week. So 2 hikers rescued in severe conditions on Mount Washington in New Hampshire. Now, this was conducted on February 2nd. So, good Lord, it was a week ago. Multiple agencies and search and rescue team worked together to rescue 2 hikers who had become stranded in whiteout conditions on the upper reaches of Mount Washington. Now, shortly after 6 p.m. on the evening of February 2nd, New Hampshire Fish and Game was contacted at 911, received a call about hikers lost off the adjacent Jewel Trail on Mount Washington. They quickly learned that 2 people, Catherine and Beata, 51 and 54 of Massachusetts, were stuck in very deep snow at 5,000 feet of elevation. They plotted GPS coordinates. 911 determined that they were only 34 feet from the trail. Now, conservation officer was able to speak to them via cell phone and directed them towards the trail. Over the next 2 hours, McKee and LaChore fought through chest deep snow and spruce traps to try to regain the trail. They ended up on the trail several times, but could follow it by completely erased wind and snow. Now, when you're up that high, do you start getting the cairns and such, and, waist deep? Those cairns are probably, as I remember, probably like chest, maybe even lower, but they're huge, so they could be covered by snow or not, or they could be just covered by frost and stuff, and it looks like a regular tree, and you're just not on the trail. There's no trail markers or anything up there, so they had to do all to find that trail. So they huddled up after multiple attempts with Fish and Game. They needed to huddle up in the snow to keep warm and wait assistance. By 8:30 p.m., 2.5 hours after the call, Fish and Game began to conduct a full-blown rescue operation. Now, at that time, winter conditions on the summit had been temperatures of -2 degrees and sustained winds at 50, 60 miles an hour. Now, that's not gust. Those are sustained constant winds. We're used to mostly not constant winds of maybe 10 to 20 up here in the Catskills, then gust of 50 to 60, not sustained winds of 50, 60 miles an hour. That's pretty crazy. So basically you're driving on the highway at 60 miles an hour. That's what it is. Constant. That is insane. So they ready their snowcat to bring the resources to the summit of Mount Washington and the pursue from there. Mountain Rescue Services and members from the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department were called upon to attempt the rescue from the summit. By 10:30 p.m., rescuers were arriving at the summit of the Outer Road, which is 4.5 hours later after the call. Looks like they reached the summit of the Jewel Trail below Mount Clay at 1:20 a.m. and crews were approaching the last known location of the two hikers who they had not yet made contact. The only way to locate the trail was through GPS navigation, and that was going super slow due to the wind conditions and the deep snow. At 1:50 a.m., rescue crews successfully located the two hikers. Both were alive and coherent, but suffering from cold weather injuries. Crews immediately set up emergency shelters and began to warm the hikers. This warming process took about an hour, but by approximately 3 a.m., the hikers had brought back to a point of being able to move on their own. Once everyone was up and moving, crews continued down the Jewel Trail towards the base station of the Cog Railway. At approximately 4:15, after about 10 hours after they called, the rescue party, along with the hikers, safely reached the base station of the Cog Railway. Now, they were evaluated, and then personnel finally cleared at 7 a.m. They both had hike safeguards, and they were both prepared for winter hiking experience, but ultimately they encountered unforeseen conditions. So they said they had the right amount of gear with them, but they didn't state if they had snowshoes or not. That's could have helped them. I mean, breaking trail through chest deep snow could have helped them a tiny bit, but I mean, I didn't hear anything about snowshoes. But amazing display of heroism for these two people to be rescued on top of Mount Washington in the worst conditions. And it shows you how, if you're well prepared, you can stay out there for, 8 hours until they reach you if you are well prepared and you kind of hunker down.
So that's one of my questions. I mean, they say they were prepared for winter hiking. With what I bring into the Catskills for a winter hike, I wouldn't be able to make 7 hours in those types of conditions, 40, 50, 60 mile an hour winds, wind chill well below zero, chest deep snow. Could you imagine just like standing still for 7 hours in that place with what's in your backpack right now? Right? What do you have enough stuff in your backpack right now to be able to survive an hour like that?
Oh yeah. I have my tarp in the bottom. I have that emergency small shelter, the reflective thing. I have extra layers of clothes. Like I always carry extra layer of clothes, like pants. Especially in the winter, I have the thermal pants for underneath the pants too.
Which means you got to take your pants off to put them on.
True. I mean,
how you doing that in 40 to 50 mile an hour winds? Your clothes are like flying everywhere.
Either that, or I put them over top of my other ones and just get that extra layer of protection. Mm-hmm. I mean, usually these are for me, but I would say these are for somebody else that might be in a crappy situation. But I mean, like you said, the Catskills, unless it is a crazy incident where you're not going to be seen on the trail, you might have to hunker down, but usually we're not going to be running into, -2 temperatures, 60 mile an hour winds, snow. The trail is blocked out. You can't see unless, you're stupid and you go out during a winter storm.
Yeah. And there are people that do that, but I think this story illustrates the amount of gear you need to bring with you into the White Mountains or into the Adirondacks versus the Catskills. I think these women, they don't say what they had, but I think they must have had a bunch of zip-on clothes, like zip-on pants. I have like zip-on insulating pants, full length zipper, from waist to your ankle, so I don't have to take off anything. And the same thing with like a hard shell to go over that I have. But I think these people probably had more than that for 7 hours to sit there. You could protect yourself from the wind by burrowing into the snow, using that to help shelter you from the wind, but you're still in a very cold environment. I think you need a lot of gear, maybe even a sleeping bag. Yeah. To survive that long. Darren
White, he sent me stuff that they actually interviewed them. They did have snowshoes. They said the snow wasn't sticking to anything. So basically all that snow's that up in the air and down below that is pelting off of you. What else? -2. McKee said she was wearing gloves with liners, but lost the use of her hands due to the cold. She had a first aid kit that she had an emergency blanket and extra hand warmers. She couldn't open the chest because her hands were frozen. I was terrified. Sorry of reading this. This is just coming to my attention. So grabbed a bag and used it as a wing guard. Wrapped in covering used over sleeping mats and bags. So they brought everything to spend the night.
There you go.
Yeah, it's, hold on, 9 rescuers. She had suffered frostbite mostly to their hands. They sent up emergency shelters, emergency gears, and extreme hiking winters, but they didn't expect they would lose the trail. And they said they felt really awful about doing that. So.
Yeah, I wonder what the decision-making process was for them going up. You know, were they thinking about turning around on their way up? Did they reach the summit that day? Does it say that?
No,
they never summited?
No, they went not to Washington. They might have near summited Clay, but
yeah, it's just interesting why they didn't turn back sooner.
Yeah,
especially with the snow deep like that. I mean, I know from my winter hiking in the Catskills that when you're out there and you realize that you're just not making time, bail out.
Or it's not fun anymore. That's what I say.
Well, I mean, it could be type 2 fun. I mean, you know, the struggle sometimes can be part of the journey on the one hand, but I can, you know, there's countless times I've set out in the winter to do 4 mountains, and I know halfway through, or even before I get halfway through, I'm not doing all 4. And so I'm just thinking of that bailout point where I'm just going to hike down to the road or to a trail or something and get out of the woods for the day.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely, you know, a huge difference between, you know, us and New Hampshire. Of course, above tree line has definitely got way bigger risk than the Catskills, and it just shows you how their volunteer teams, you know, search and rescue, New Hampshire Fish and Game and stuff all come together and they save these people's lives. But once again, 10 hours out there, 6 hours, 7 hours in the snow, man, that's Everest shit. Yeah, that's crazy. But as we learned from our rangers, these guys are pretty quick to respond, man. They were giving some accounts of, you know, being able to get there and retrieve the person within a couple hours, which is, you know, great. That's kudos to them. But that all assumes they can find the person. And that's a big part of the rescue, is being able to locate the person you're searching for, which I guess is another promo for something like a Garmin InReach. And eventually all of our cell phones will be better equipped to give you satellite location, or at least give responders satellite location. So, yeah. But thankfully those 2 were found. Yeah. Another one of those stories where. Yeah. Can't say that for everyone this winter. Oh, anything else? You got anything else you want to chat about, Tad? I don't know. You want to do recent hikes, or you don't want to do recent hikes because you don't do recent hikes? No. Oh, geez. Yikes. I do recent hikes. All right. Daggers out. Let's go to the monthly supporters. So we thank you once again to the monthly supporters: Chris Garbian, Jeff Jotz, Desert City Radio, Mikey S., John Comiskey, Summit Seekers, Betsy A., Denise Weiss, Tom H., Vanessa, and Derek. Thank you guys very much for supporting the show. Greatly appreciate it. Also, thank you to Outdoor Chronicles Photography for sponsoring the show. Molly specializes in adventure couple photography, and she'll immortalize the moments amongst the Catskill, Adirondacks, and White Mountains. She'll craft time-lapse images that reflect your unique bond in nature's grandeur. Embark on an unforgettable journey with Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Don't hesitate to get a hold of Aunt Molly on all platforms. Also, discover the wilderness with the Trailbound Project. Our expert-led hiking and backpacking education programs offer unparalleled outdoor experiences. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned adventurer, join us to learn essential skills, explore stunning trails, and connect with nature. Start your journey today with Trailbound Project and unlock the great wonders of the outdoors. So hard ciders mentions, no hard ciders. I thought Slade or the DEC was going to donate a hard cider because of our interview, but no, nothing yet.
Well, it's a bureaucracy. It might take him a few years to buy one.
Yeah, he's a lieutenant. It's going to take him a while. So, so mentions. Looks like Tom Who's and Jeff Jotz combined their.
Who was that again? Tom.
Who's outdoors?
Tom Who's. Yeah.
Who's
so I think we should rename this segment. Just call it Who's Outdoors.
Who's Outdoors?
Yeah. Right.
That could go either way too. It's not just Tom Who's Outdoors, but it could be Who's Outdoors. Oh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. I mean, obviously Tom, tags us often, promotes us, sponsors us, organizing group hikes. Tom is a rising star in the hiking community. A little shout out there for you, Tom. But yeah, I think that's a good name for this segment. Who's Outdoors?
Who's Outdoors?
Yeah. So think about it. We'll present it to the executive committee this week and the board. I think we're having like the first annual meeting of the Inside the Line executive board, which consists of, what's your dog's name again?
Dahlia.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Tom and Jeff has their dogs.
That's right. So
yeah. So everybody's so they combined their superpowers and hiked up Bear Pen. Beautiful winter hike. Tom was dissing Bear Pen before, but now he grew back and loved it. So I've never had any hate against Bear Pen. I actually think it's a fantastic hike.
Yeah, I'll ditto that.
It's super easy. I gotta admit, it's.
Well, in the winter, I've been up there with deep snow, and it's been a real effort. And there's some terrain up there worth exploring. Sometimes you just kind of get complacent, and you take the snowmobile trails when you go up there. But there's a lot of terrain up there to explore. I was up there this October with Mike Kudish, mapping first growth with him. So that introduces a new thing to appreciate about Bear Pen. And then it's got kind of like that pseudo pygmy forest on the western side.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's reminiscent of Graham Mountain.
Yep, that's what I feel. And when the snow hits those deep levels, which I'm waiting for, some super deep levels, you could get very high to have a 360 view on that mountain.
Yeah,
it's got to be like 6-7 feet, but
yeah, I was going to say. So let's talk about Tom again and his Who's Outdoors hiking expeditions.
Yeah, so it looks like they went up Bear Pen. And Jeff Jotz, another subscriber to the show, they went up Bear Pen, and then Jeff opted to go up Vly. I'm guessing Tom is doing his winters. Jeff is he doing his winters too?
I don't know if he's working on something or not working on something.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes it's just about getting out and hiking.
Yeah, him and Orla went on their hike up Vly and stuff, and it looks like they had a pretty decent time going up to Bear Pen and Vly. It was nice winter conditions, once again, not like they're breaking trail and stuff. You can't really break trail on Bear Pen unless you depends on where you're going, and you're going up the regular path stuff.
Yeah, when you make that turn off the snowmobile path and head through the woods, you can break trail through there.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, it looks like they had a great time. So, and hopefully you guys are enjoying your winter hikes, because it's been a fantastic winter so far. I think for the past 5 to 10 years, it's just been what I call it a kind of like a solid winter of just actually sustaining winter, instead of being like a dump of 12 inches melts.
Yeah, it's we've been becoming experienced with these marginal winters where it's hovering above and below freezing during the week, and we get a lot of melt, we get a lot of rain. But looking at the forecast going forward, the warmest day coming up is on Thursday, but they're also calling for snow on Thursday. But it looks like any snow that was on the ground this weekend is going to, stay out all week long, and then we're going to get some more days on Wednesday and Thursday and Saturday with some snow. So, well, more good winter conditions, but not like those on Mount Washington.
Yes. Yes, Jesus. All right. And also, it looks like Beyond Blazes, Joanne went and did the Burroughs range recently. So we're going to have her. She's going to be on the show soon, just to let you know.
Oh, really? Wow.
That's soon. Yeah. She's going to be talking about stuff over in the Hudson Valley. So
yeah, and I know she's gridding the Catskills right now. I don't know how far through her grid is, but I know she's getting out doing a lot of Catskill hiking. And from what I can tell, it looks like she knows the Harriman, Bear Mountain State Park, the whole Hudson Highland area pretty well. So it'll be interesting to hear what she has to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It looked like they had great conditions up on the Burroughs Range. Those conditions are unforgettable, especially.
Yeah, great place to hike in the winter.
Yeah. Also, I just realized this. Rachel Jean, the Gypsy Queen, did Rusk on February 1st. So I might have forgot this on the last episode or not. I'm trying to think if I did. So if I did, I'm sorry. But she went up Rusk. Didn't have to use snowshoes. She said she spiked all the way up and had a great time. She did have a picture of where she was trying to get over one of the big logs that go in the way of the herd path. And I remember looks like she's having a good time. And I went over that with my snowshoes and it got locked on the snowshoes and I fell face first into the snow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
I had a few incidents yesterday and fall on my face, but I just went right through the snow and into one of those cracks between some rocks all the way down. One of them I had a pretty hard time getting out of, but I managed.
Yeah, she also went to Woodstock Brewing. So post-hike brews and bites, and had the Moonburger. I want to try that. So. Oh
yeah, Moonburger started off being meatless, and now I see they have beef burgers as well. So you can get it either way. You can go meatless or all meat at Moonburger with locations in Kingston, New Paltz, and Poughkeepsie.
Nice. So. Crazy. So good time. God, everybody's getting out and getting some winters done. I'm actually glad that they're doing their winters with winter conditions.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the past 5 to 10 years, it's been just ice and no snow.
Yeah. So it leads me to ask, why aren't you hiking today?
It's because I just kind of didn't want to. I wanted to sleep.
Okay.
And you got the Super Bowl coming up, and everybody's offering some good food later on. So I'm constricted on time.
Yeah, you're doing Super Bowl parties this afternoon.
My friends are. Yeah, I'm going to be going to that.
Yeah. Who do you like in the Super Bowl? Eagles or Kansas City?
The Kansas City Swifts. Taylor's Chiefs or whatever. Yeah.
So that's who you're rooting. You're rooting for KC. They're last I saw, they were a 1.5 favorite.
I'm just watching it because I know that we have an ad in it. I had to pay $8 million for an ad.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
So you want to bet? You want to bet on the Super Bowl? I'll take Eagles. You give me a 1.5.
A 1.5?
Yeah.
For what?
That's the spread. That's the last spread I saw.
No, so, I don't bet on overpaid athletes.
All right.
Man, I'm freaking
So I'm rooting for the Eagles because the Chiefs take out the Bills every time. So
yeah, that's true.
I can't like them.
All right. So I was gonna drinking anything with our previous thing. I had 9-pin cider when we were talking with the Rangers, Rusher and Horn, and then I also had an Austruck and I had a couple more. So that was a long talk, 3 hours. So I just kept fueling myself.
Yeah, you weren't thirsty. That's for
not
sure.
At all.
You were well hydrated. You were well hydrated for that. I saw her feeding you through the door. The door was opening. The hand was coming in with the shiny can. We'd hear the crack in the background. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the power went out at the DEC.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we know why that happened. So I'm just drinking a cup of coffee right now, but I picked up some special stuff after my hike yesterday for the show this week.
Ooh, nice. So, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So, previous hikes, Tad, go on with your good story, and then I'll go on with mine.
So, should I save my hike from yesterday for the show this week and just go back? All right. So, last weekend, I did Panther Mountain from I bushwhacked up to Giant Ledge from the road, and it was quite nice. I wanted to follow I forget the name of that creek that runs up through there.
The Panther Kill?
No, it's not the Panther Kill. I think I can look on the map. But I wanted to follow that waterway up, but it was just the water was too high. There wasn't enough ice bridging, and it just didn't seem like it was going to be efficient to go up that way. So I then just recalibrated and basically went straight up the slope to Giant Ledge. I've never been up that way before. It was quite pleasant. I'll say overall, there were some steep sections. There were a few hemlock roads to hike through, but, there wasn't any real significant rock outcroppings to deal with going up there. I'm also looking at my map at the name of that waterway. I know I did it with Danny Davis. It's not labeled as having a name. But Cascade Brook, I think, rings a bell. But in any event, so I hiked up to Giant Ledge, and I had my snowshoes on all the way up, banged a left at Giant Ledge, headed out towards Panther, still with my snowshoes on. Most people, the trail was like hard, packed down, kind of like a winter sidewalk. Made Panther, and then real interestingly, I continued north after the lookout on Panther into that little fault summit, if you will, to the north of Panther, breaking trail the whole way. That's just a really, really nice section of Panther's summit ridge. And nobody had been over there, so I'm just, busting through the crusty snow on the way over. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm doing that like 3/4 of a mile jaunt over, that for anyone who was hiking in from Fox Hollow that day, right? And they're going to be, when they get up there, they're going to be tired, but they're going to want to make to the summit of Panther, and then they're going to hit my tracks, right? And it's going to be smooth sailing for them right over to the summit. So I did that. It was really cool to be over there, and, just because how wintry it was. And then I get back, I go over the top of Panther, I go down to my car. And then later on in the day, I find out that Danny Davis hiked Panther from Fox Hollow, right? So I don't know if there's a little synergy there or not, what happened, but he's like, wow, I hiked up and I get to this spot, and all of a sudden there were somebody's tracks there. And it was like divine to be able to, get relieved from breaking trail on the way over. So,
and then he looked at those tracks that went off trail from there. He's like, what the hell was this idiot doing?
He would be able to figure that out. But I don't think he went all the way over to Giant Ledge. He went up to Panther and turned back down. So,
nice. Danny Davis stayed on trail? No way.
Well, I mean, he was solo and he was breaking trail to get up there. And sometimes, it's just fun to do that. Honestly, any time of year, hiking Panther from Fox Hollow is a great hike. There's a few sections that are kind of ho-hum on your way over there, but for the most part, it's just really nice terrain.
I find that whole area to be nice. Just that ho-hum,
Yeah. Well, now I'm hearing you saying it's about the journey, right?
Yeah.
I find that whole area over there is what you said, which means the journey.
Exactly. Right? But it has viewpoints, those pointless up and downs, those two pointless up and downs, those PUDs have viewpoints if in the winter.
Yeah. And there's those real neat clearings over there. And could you imagine there's some people that might even be doing their grid, their 4 seasons, or just a lot of Catskill hiking, and they never get over that northern section of Panther. They never hike in from Fox Hollow because they're just out there peat bagging.
Yeah.
And so they're missing out on that. And frankly, that's good, because then it just saves it and preserves it for those of us who really enjoy that segment.
And especially with that one section, when you start up Fox Hollow, you get to that one section that has all that blowdown from that massive windstorm that happened. I forgot when they said, like the early 2000s or something like that, where it just blowed that whole side of the mountain over, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
I just find that's cool.
Well, all of that has changed over, the last 10 years with the emerald ash borer and all the ash trees going down. So it's just, opening up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, You did a awesome Panther Mountain from like a bushwhacked Fox Hollow thing. I was up Bramley Mountain this past Tuesday. I decided to stay local, stay close because I had some stuff going on later in the day. So I was like, Bramley Mountain, I can like attack that quickly. And it was going to be awesome cold day. Like I started out at the trailhead over there at, I think it was 16 degrees and the wind was howling. And I was like, okay, I'll take so it's called the Quarry Trail. You go up this actual hiking and then you take the fire trail, like the road down. So I did that and I just wore spikes the whole way. There's a nice pavement going around. And then it looked like somebody wore like 42-inch snowshoes. Like these were old.
Oh, really?
Oh
Yeah.
God, their marks in the freaking snow were at least the size of my arm. And I was like, who the hell wore these things? Like
Maybe it was Sasquatch.
Could have been like, I would have been intimidated if I was Sasquatch by the size of those things. I'm like, I don't even wear those. Like, wow. But somebody that had some fun with that. And it was pretty cool to see some people going off trail at certain spots because I know like, oh, this is an old mountain road that leads to this area and such. And then, oh, there's where some big cairns that they made a long time ago. That's where they are. So it's cool to see that. And as I got to one side of the mountain, the wind started to pick up even more. Like there was a constant, maybe 20 mile per hour, and then there were big gusts like 40.
So was it drifting? Did you get some drifts associated with that? Yeah.
Yeah, nothing of like craziness where there were like 3 or 4 feet, maybe like 2 feet. In very small spots though, very small spots. And it was just, a lot of it was ice. And that Quarry Trail is really nice gain. It's like 1.7 miles with 900 feet of gain. So it's actually, for a western Catskill mountain, it's pretty significant gain. And got up to the top. Unfortunately, the fire tower, like you cannot access any part of the fire tower unless there's a steward available.
What about with bolt cutters? Would you bring bolt cutters with you to get into the fire tower or no?
That's you gotta ask the DEC that. So Lori said there was something I'll have to talk about is with the DEP that is not letting them have a person go up even on the tower part to get above tree line because that is DEP property over there that they do. So
really, so the DEP owns Bromley Mountain, the summit, and they let them put up a fire tower, but they're not letting them put a person in the fire tower.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're letting you hike up or climb up the stairs to the cab.
No, you can't even do that.
Oh, really?
No. Isn't that so bummer? That she said she's fighting for that, of course, because like,
when did they tell them this? Did they know this when they were putting up the tower, or is it like after the tower's up, they say, "Oh, by the way, now that you built it, we're not going to let anybody go up it. You can't." So, but what about for like maintenance, safety inspections? Nobody gets to use the stairs.
Well, I guess you can. Like for them, it's got to have like a certified like person, but that's all I know. I'm just relaying the information. Wow. It stinks.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And you know what, like it was cool because when I was at the top, there's a certain part kind of like when you crest over and you'll start going south on the summit. The summit's a nice big open spot. And on one side, there's absolutely no wind. On the other side, there's 40 mile per hour gust. So I was having the time of my life because it was like 10 degrees and then below zero at the top. And I was wearing like that Helly Hansen jacket is just fantastic. Just blocking everything which way whatsoever. And I was comfortable the whole time. And cool thing was I saw a big cloud come in and I got hit with squalls. So I got a view for like 5 minutes and then I was hit with snow, but I was still sitting up there just chilling and it was fun. And went down the fire tower road back down to the parking area and I start seeing snowmobile tracks and I'm like, I don't think this is right. And then I got more towards the steeper areas of the snowmobile trail, and then I see UTV tracks, and there's a steep part that they did not get up. So I'm like, this like doesn't seem right. So I sent Lori a message, and she's like, no, the only people who can access that is the DEC and the DEP, and if we get a what's it called, like a permit to do that. So she's like, people are probably abusing that now, and it's just really sad that you do something for the locals, and then there are local people that are going to abuse it. So come in the summer, if this is all wet and stuff, it's going to make that like Bearpen Mountain or Catskill High Peak was a goddamn moat. But it was cool. I love that challenging weather of just being in there with snow and just the wind and stuff like that. And I had the views of Mount Pishka, and I got to see a little bit of Panther, and then the squalls came in, and I didn't say blow it, but it was nice. And then I head back down and had lunch. So a good journey.
Good. Glad you got out.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully I'll get out soon again. We'll see. Catskill News, once again, volunteer. They're probably making their schedules up. We need Burlington Mountain Fire Tower stewards, so get up there. So maybe I'll become one so I can go up there every time.
Yeah.
Do you need stickers? Let me know. Tom Who's finally got his sticker after yelling at me viciously over Instagram about how I didn't get him anything. He nailed me, and I was like, oh, God, sorry. And I got it to him. So he got his sticker within 3 days.
And now he's got a segment named after him.
He
Who's
does.
Outdoors. Yeah.
Yeah, Who's Outdoors. Yeah, we should charge him for that. Sorry, Tom.
But he's already a sponsor. Right?
He is. That's true. So, yeah.
So
okay. So go ahead.
See what happens when you support the show. We support you.
Yeah, exactly.
Mutually beneficial.
Right. So also got some news. Big Indian Wilderness, the Ryder Hollow lean-to on the Mapledale Olive Ray side is closed until further notice. Please plan accordingly. I got this from the DEC Catskills page or something like that. I'm very curious of why I know is that the one that's sitting on the edge of the creek, right?
Yeah. You have to go over the bridge to get to it. Is that the one? Has the little steel bridge? Yeah. Yeah.
I think so.
I find that interesting that that's closed. You can kind of get the sense though that stream that runs through there probably meanders quite a bit during a heavy rainfall. And you could see how that area would be inundated with water if there's a big enough storm. So
yeah, that's definitely the one that's like sitting right in the middle of the creek.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, because as that floods, it's instantly going to get like water in it. And so I mean, the last time I was there was a long time ago, and it looked okay, but there are definitely other shelters that need help better than that one that are open.
Yeah. I mean, in the right conditions, it's a great place to camp. It's very accessible. You're right there on the water. It's scenic in there, but it would be a questionable place to be after a heavy or during a heavy storm. Yeah.
So we won't go over weather forecast because this is going to be released early on Monday. So we'll do that on Tuesday.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of content coming out this week.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So we'll go with our last set of sponsors, and then we'll break on to Rusher and Horn Part 2, Wildfires.
Excellent.
All right, so discover Camp Catskill in Tannersville, your ultimate hiking store. Find top quality gear, apparel, and accessories for all your outdoor adventures. Our expert staff is here to help every hiker, from beginners to seasoned pros. We also carry a wide variety of unique Catskill souvenirs and gifts. Visit us online at campcatskill.co or in the store to gear up for your next journey. Adventure starts at Camp Catskill. Also, you can discover the beauty of the Catskills, Adirondacks, and Hudson Valley with scenic route guiding. Our expert guides to ensure a safe, unforgettable hiking experience tailored to your skill level. From breathtaking vistas to hidden gems, or if you're peak bagging to just simple day hikes, we'll lead you to the best spots and back. Book your adventure today and explore nature's wonders with scenic route guiding. Check them out on all social media platforms. Also, if you mention this amazing podcast, you can get 10% off. Use the amazing code mountain lion. And also, you can embark on a transformative journey with Another Summit. Another Summit is dedicated to serving veterans and first responders with free outdoor activities. Activities like walks in nature, paddling, hiking, and even backpacking. Join our supportive community to rejuvenate in nature's embrace. Experience camaraderie, adventure, and healing at no cost. Take your next step with Another Summit and ascend to new heights of resilience and joy. Apply today at anothersummit.org. All right, so let's get on to the guest of the night.
Let's go.
So with 2024, we saw a massive rise in dryness in just the forest alone all across New York State. We didn't have any rain. We didn't have any snow previously. Before then, it's been really weird. So now we see this rush in wildfires. And this is not just the small containing wildfires that you have with volunteer fire departments, but massive wildfires. 5,000 acres is actually pretty crazy for New York State. With, we talk about the White House fire, 645 acres. Not a lot of people know how big that is, but it's massive. So you guys have been battling wildfires, not just in New York State, but also out of state as well. So you guys want to chat about the wildfires here? First, let's start off with Rusher going in Montana. What the hell were you doing out of Montana?
Yeah. So it's a really great part of our program in the New York State Forest Rangers. We get to get deployed on Western fire assignments. Like each individual ranger usually won't go every year, but every year we'll send out multiple crews out west, and we have a agreement with the federal government to help them out to fight fires out west. So we usually do like one to four, maybe 5 different crews that will go out on a Western fire assignment for 2 weeks at a time. And it's usually New York State gets reimbursed by the federal government to pay for it. And
we just had a crew come back just a few days ago. They were out in California on those those fires.
Yeah, and it's good for us. Well, good for them because we can help them, and also good for us because we get a different type of wildland fire experience on the west, in the western part of the U.S. on bigger fires, and then we could bring that knowledge and skill set back to New York. And so this particular year, we actually had an agreement with the state of Montana, and so we sent out multiple crews to Montana, like multiple engine crews and some 10-person modules. They're called. So a 10-person crew, kind of like pre-positioned for like a severity assignment, it's called. So we didn't go to one particular fire. We went to Helena area in the Helena fire district for the state of Montana, and we were essentially the hand crew to respond for initial attack for any type of fire that would start. They really focus on trying to keep their fires small so that they don't grow, because it was extremely dry, even more dry out there, with some really high potential for really big fires. So they really get after it over there. They put a lot of effort into trying to keep the fires small. And so our assignment was to patrol this Helena fire district and learn the area. And I was there for 2 weeks and ended up going to a handful of smaller fires because we were able to keep them small. We heard about them over the radio, and there were a couple just from lightning strikes. They get a lot of starts from lightning strikes, just because out there you don't really get the rain, as much rain associated with lightning storms as we do out here in the Northeast. So they could get a lightning strike without very much rain, and then the tree will burn, and then it'll cause a wildfire. So we got to respond to multiple lightning strike fires and see a really neat part of the country out in Montana, and work with the state of Montana out there. So it was a really good experience overall.
Total different experience out there when it's like I've noticed that the trees burn out there, when more of out here is the underbrush that burns.
Yeah, like the ponderosa pine, there was a lot of them out there, and like these steep gullies and miles of prairie fields and really nice landscape, but highly flammable.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we bring it back here to New York State, where we've had rain inconsistent for like a long amount of time, and then we get also these fires that what were like most of these fires started by? Like, was this humans? Was this?
Well, yeah. So if we, so in September was kind of when all this dryness was happening, and that was when I went to Montana. And then October came, and then it was still hadn't rained very much or at all, and like everything was super dry. And
yeah, there was a certain point, I think, looking at the statistics, it was almost like a 7 or 8 inch rain deficit for that same amount of time in Ulster County. So it's kind of it was like an unprecedented drought for the area at the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like in late September, we had like something kick off in the Hemlock Ridge area, really close to that like Mount Zion fire, and that was small. It was started by an escaped campfire. So usually, most of the fires in New York are started by people, usually accidental, but either it's like someone's doing open burning brush, or like an escaped campfire. So in this case, it was. I found the recently made fire ring, and due to the dryness, probably it was accidental. Someone tried to extinguish the fire, but it wasn't fully extinguished. It probably was just smoldering, but because it was so dry, the heat went into the ground and burned underneath the campfire into the surrounding area, into the ground fire, and then just set the vegetation on the surface on fire after that. So an escaped campfire.
So why don't you describe that process for us in a little more detail? You're telling us that the fire actually goes underneath the surface.
Yeah. So basically,
and jumps under the fire ring and then spreads.
Yeah. So basically, there's like you can call it a layer of duff. You can call it, where it's this organic kind of fibrous material with roots and things that'll still burn. So it's a layer of duff. So it could be like decomposing leaf litter, vegetation that's within like the first usually maybe 4 or 5 inches underground. It could get deeper in some areas. So that's very organic and flammable. And so during this drought, that's bone dry. Usually here in New York, we don't really get a whole lot of ground fire. Maybe later in the summer we'll get some ground fire, but it gets very challenging fighting ground fire because it can creep, it can go under things, and so you have this layer of duff that's super dry, and then it gets hot, and then it starts burning, and it just expands out from wherever it is, and then it just heated up the vegetation that was outside of the ring, and then caught on fire on the surface, and then just started burning everything else.
Yeah, like here in New York, as JJ was saying, it's like we usually got 2 fire seasons. So usually for us in the spring, around March, when that burn ban kicks into place, that's usually like one of our first fire seasons. So everything's dry coming out of the winter, fuel moisture wise, it's available to burn. As summer comes around, it greens up, really doesn't burn too much because everything's wet and green and we get a ton of rain. Going into this fall, and we'll talk about it on a bunch of these fires, and that's kind of contributing factor to why a lot of them got so large, is that ground fire. That's typically more of a fall thing, and as JJ was saying, it just gets deep into that ground, and even if you don't see it on the top, it's still there, and you really got to be super, you really got to get in there and dig that stuff up and put it out.
So we had that happen at late September in this Hemlock Ridge multiple use area in the town of Plattekill, where it was this escaped campfire. And then it was only like a third of an acre, and we were able to put it out, and everything was fine. And then you go a month later, October 25th was kind of the day that it kicked off. And in that exact same area, it's not like a super popular area, but I think some of the neighbors have been saying some people are going there just having fun and having a campfire. And so I suspect it was probably something similar. And except there was another month of drying that happened from that time period. And I got called at midnight. I think it was like October 25th. I just come back from Long Island. Actually, Eric and I were at the New York Fire Academy in Long Island for a week doing wildland fire training for a special class that we had to take. And then I came back from there and then went to sleep and then got woken up at midnight to say there was a large brush fire in Hemlock Ridge. And I was like, all right. But usually when they say there's a large brush fire, that usually something's going on. And so I went there at midnight, and the fire departments were already there. And yeah, it was cranking even at midnight up to like 2 a.m. At that time, it was about 4 acres. That first night, I was able to get around it, and it was like 80% humidity. So when we look at fires, we're very focused on the weather. So we know that it's super dry, and so the other elements are we're looking at the temperature and the humidity and the wind. And usually at nighttime the humidity goes up, so the fire activity goes down. And so it was 80% humidity, which is high, but it was so dry that it was still cranking and growing fast. It was like 4 acres already, and then just kind of getting around it and trying to look at it. But there's a lot of risk for that. Burning trees at nighttime, when they get into the dead trees, the snags, and they start burning, there's a high risk that they're going to fall down, and they could strike you and kill people. But we're still got to size up the fire. And so I was out there trying to size it up and coming up with a plan for the next day, and was out there for 3 or 4 hours and was able to come up with a plan and order some resources for the next day. And the next day came, and it was like it doubled in size overnight, even with like 80% humidity. And then I got out there early in the morning and looked at it, and fire activity was picking up. And I was like, all right, I think we need some bucket drops, and we need to like call in more resources to get a handle on it. And we worked really well with the local fire departments and the county 911 center for emergency services, and the fire coordinators, kind of organizing the different fire departments for resources. And we were able to contain it at just under 50 acres. But
wow. It went from 4 to 50.
Yeah, pretty much. First night it was 4 acres, and it doubled in size to 8, and then probably over the next 24 hours, we pretty much capped it at that. We worked really hard to get a line around, and really this is like all leaf litter fire mostly.
Yeah, I mean
underbrush, right?
Yeah, leaves on the ground.
Yeah, because I got the call from Slade at like 5 that morning. Got there. It's like we tried to put line around that thing all day. And then, we were there until well past midnight that first night. The fire activity was just very surprising for New York. And JJ really didn't like paint the picture of the terrain. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Hemlock.
I haven't been there, but I live between. I live just south of New Paltz, so
yeah, it's a small piece, but it's very, very cliffy. Like the terrain is actually pretty difficult, especially for trying to think in terms of putting a fire containment line around it.
Which is something you would use like a bulldozer for?
We do, but in this particular case, there was like a trail that we could improve on the one side, and then we created trails kind of on the other side. But then there's steep cliffs and rock, so you can't send the bulldozer there. And really, it was a leaf litter fire, and once we moved the leaves, then the fire would stop. Essentially, it would get into the ground potentially, especially if there's like stumps and stuff that are right there. We're taking leaf blowers, leaf rakes, and digging line around it, and then that was doing a good job of stopping it. But the problem was, since it happened in late October, not all the leaves had fallen off the trees yet. And so we were constantly battling the fire, kind of reigniting itself from fresh dry leaves that are falling down every single day. So we had to constantly maintain those control lines, because the fire would just reset itself. And a week later, you would look at it, you wouldn't even see any black that already burned. It looked like it didn't burn because there's a whole new set of leaves that are falling down. And so we had to constantly babysit that for 2 weeks straight, and we're working long hours.
Did that fire start up again? I seem to remember one out near the Hudson River that kind of rekindled itself.
Yeah, I mean, it was still burning, but like that first, I think it was a Friday that it started, and then we worked hard throughout that weekend, and then we're still working, and then later on the following week, we still had like some red flag days, and we had to contain it. There was high winds, low humidity, high temperature, and then active leaves that are still falling down, and so yeah, it did kind of reset itself, but it was never out. We were still there every single day.
Yeah.
It just kind of, all the leaves just reset the fire essentially. So we couldn't leave it. We had to go every single day. We had to use leaf blowers, leaf rakes, keep on improving the lines. We set up a long hose lay that was, I forget the exact number, but it was like at least a mile.
It's at least a mile.
Up 400 or 500 feet in elevation rise to get up the cliffy side. And Eric set that up with some other rangers, and we used our pump. We have a wildland firefighting engine that has a high pressure pump on it, and then we're working with the fire departments with like a 3,000 to 5,000 gallon drop tank that we would drop on the road, use our pump, and then hose lay to send the water up to the top because it just wasn't going out. It was so dry with no rain in sight.
So the logistics here are you have a mile of fire hose that's doing a 400 feet vertical elevation that you're pumping water uphill for a mile, 400 feet from a 4,000 gallon tank. How long does it take to empty the tank?
It would depend on how many nozzles we have open. So we set it up so we have a lot of flexibility on how much water we're using. And it's one of the strategies or tactics that we use is try to conserve water. And so we have different types of nozzles that we could use where you could just spray a little bit of water, a minimal amount of water. But, if we have like all the nozzles open and it's like cranking, maybe like 4 hours, maybe
to empty the tank. Wow.
Yeah,
so you're doing 1,000 gallons an hour, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
If we're cranking.
Yeah, that's a lot of water through that hose, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, compared to like, you think of wildland firefighting, like a lot of the tactics are different than structure firefighting. So when you think of structure, it's like you want to get a lot of water there fast versus wildland firefighting. It's like you don't need a ton of water, but you just need a lot of pressure to get it to where it needs to go. Talking about that elevation change and then losing pressure as you open up and close nozzles. So a lot of it's just being smart with how you use it.
Yeah. And then a lot of it is basically looking at what is the high probability of area that's going to ignite quicker. And then the slower stuff you can battle yourself, whereas the faster stuff you need to battle with water.
Yeah. Well, essentially, the way we normally do it is like the basic strategy is anchor, flank, and pinch. We try to go direct, we call that. So we're working close to the fire. So leaf litter fire is like under 1 to 4 feet in flame length, which is safe for us to go direct, which means that we're next to the fire. We could work safely close to the fire, and then we're digging line around it. So it's leaf litter. Once we remove the leaves, that more or less will kind of stop the flames from progressing if it doesn't get into the ground too much. And
that's all hand-on work where you're like digging into the wow.
Yep, between, like JJ mentioned, between leaf blowers, rakes, portions of it where you maybe had to use a Pulaski or something a little more to get into the ground, again, because it's in the ground. So you got to cut it down to mineral soil as well.
I'm just putting this out there right now. I'm betting you, Stosh, $100. Neither of these guys have gym memberships. Okay. You guys don't like go and work out on your day off. You don't go to the gym and do like anything. You don't go do calisthenics or anything. You just relax.
They don't need to.
Yeah. I mean, damn, what a physically challenging job.
Right. Yeah.
Jesus.
Especially like, this fall for sure. I mean, I ran around that fire, ran up and down those cliffs every single day.
With all your gear. So, you'll, when a flame length is up to 4 feet, which is about chest height, you'll go right up to it.
Well, I mean,
it's getting on the fringe. So like JJ was saying, there's kind of like a threshold. So that 1 to 4 feet, it's like, that's within the realm to go direct. If it's getting close to that 4 feet And then again, it's all situational. Is it 4 feet and getting into pitch pine on the ridge, or is it 4 feet because the leaves are getting blown by the wind really hard, and that's like the max it's going to get. But once it gets above that 4 feet, you're looking to more go what we call indirect, and then you go away from the fire. You pick a terrain feature, whether it's a cliff or water, a road, trail, and then you make that line away from the fire, and then potentially burn that line that you've created off, and that's pulled into the main part of the fire. That's that 4 feet or above. And then you're not necessarily right on the fire's edge, or you're going back away from it indirect.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's all basically here and there and everywhere, and communications once again, with strategic planning of how to battle this.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And I'm going to give props to JJ on this. We're joking now that he's like our designated zone incident commander, because he did such a good job running this incident. But yeah, a lot goes into being an incident commander, and like him, like he just mentioned, walking that fire every single day, getting boots on the ground, reading the terrain, coming up with a plan for the day. It's like in between, he's talking to the county, ordering these resources. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of fire departments on this incident that we're speaking about with multiple pieces of equipment. So he's coordinating all of that. Yeah, a lot goes into all of it.
Yeah.
Are you guys the primary source of incident command when it comes to this stuff with the volunteer? You guys based on?
Yeah, I mean it's always a unified command, so it's always a joint command. Because like the fire departments have an obligation. It's their fight. Like in this case, it was Plattekill Fire District, so they have an obligation to be there and to fight the fire. Meanwhile, we also have an obligation to be there. We're legislatively charged to be in charge of the wildland fires in New York State, primarily within the Catskills and Adirondacks and in the Gunks in these fire towns. Plattekill is outside of that, and so it's definitely joint command. So it's not like we come in and say that we're in charge of everything. So we're constantly working with the fire departments. But this is what we do for a living all the time. This is kind of like our bread and butter with like search and rescue and fire. So we're training on it all the time. We're doing it a lot. We're fully immersed in the fire world. So we work well at the fire departments, but we'll come up with a lot of the strategies and tactics. But like I said, it's always like a unified command.
I mean, you guys are more of trained in this area than, of course, the volunteer fire departments. Volunteer fire departments, of course, are trained more in structure fires and EMT and stuff like that. But you guys are trained more in the wildfires kind of prevention and stuff like that, and containment.
Yeah, but we worked really well with them, and it's great. I mean, really the fire departments are the backbone of our community and largely volunteer based, and we really need their help.
Yeah, right. Like just imagine you guys alone with the wildfire compared to some volunteer firefighters of 60, 70 people.
Yeah, exactly. And this one we had to babysit every day. Like we said, like, we wrap a line around it, we get a line around it, and then we try to put it out on the edge. And then we progressively work deeper and deeper in until it's 100% out, which takes a lot of time, especially when it's so dry, we're not getting any rain. And then the extra complexity of new leaves keep on falling down throughout that whole 2 weeks. It was very difficult. And it was like Groundhog Day. You had to do the same thing almost every single day.
And then just like to paint the picture of the fall. So it's like that happened on the Friday. We fought that almost through the night through that entire weekend into the beginning of the next week. I get called away to go to another fire down in Putnam, Dutchess County. And now at the same time, there's other incidents in Dutchess County going on that the Dutchess County Rangers on. There's fires popping up in Orange County that the Orange County guys are on. The stuff's going on in Sullivan County already. So it's like you're adding to the complexity of not only is JJ running this incident, but now these Rangers that are on his incident are getting pulled away to go help support other incidents. And it just, it kept building through the fall. So it's like now you're still working on that incident that JJ stayed on through the length of it. I'm getting pulled away. Other Rangers are on them. Then new fires are starting. So now we're getting spread thin more. So now you're pulling in resources from other areas to come down and supplement. So it's like trying to paint the picture for this fall.
Yeah, we hammered this. That the one that we've been talking about mostly is Mount Zion fire in the town of Plattekill. And so we were working many hours every day for 2 weeks straight until basically we had it pretty much done. It wasn't 100% out yet, but it was enough. Say, okay, we can kind of pull the throttle back a little bit because then we have these other fires popping off.
Yeah, so the one I got pulled away to was called the Old Pauling Road Fire. So again, there's already other ones going on in Dutchess and Putnam County, but this one was kind of the more active one of the bunch that was going on that side of the river. So I got pulled away to that down by Ranger Joe Priest, and then Ranger Russo kind of have that coverage area in southern Dutchess, northern Putnam. So that particular fire, the Old Pauling Road Fire, I think that one was about 22 acres. That started on private land, so we're still obligated to help fight the fire on private land as well when we get invited in by those volunteer fire departments that look for our guidance and tactics and all that. So we went down, we spent a few days on that one, and similar deal with tactics, anchor, flank, and pinch. We set up a hose light to help contain it and work it from there.
Now with the what was it, the Old Pauling Road and Dover, was as crazy as the Mount Zion one?
Similar. I mean, the terrain is very steep. There's some pictures of that one on DEC's page, I'm sure, but it was like a big cliffed out section with 300-400 feet of elevation gain, I'd bet at least. And it burned 22 acres, which you kind of picture an acre the size of, say, a football field is kind of the best comparison. So 22 football fields on the side of this mountain. Yeah, it was kind of complex. It was a similar type of fuel, so a lot of leaf litter understory, but this one was a little more brushy as well. And then, as we'll talk about with those red flag days, that kept growing and growing. So it's like now we're another week into this drying period after the Mount Zion fire had started, and now the winds are starting to increase throughout this fall. So now it's like getting more and more windy on these fires that we'll start talking about after this.
And the embers just continue to flow over to different areas. And, we weren't, you said you weren't involved in the Jennings Creek fire. Do you have any thoughts about that and such, about the 5,000 acre fire that happened right along the freaking, like, that was just insane just to see in New York State. We haven't had that happen since the early 1900s when they actually started these fires up in the Adirondacks.
Yeah, so JJ will probably help me touch on this. It's like 5,000 acres for New York is a pretty big fire, but it's not out of the realm. So you think of the more fire-prone areas of the state with Long Island and the Central Pine Barrens, with the history of the fire they had down there through the 90s and early 2000s, at least, and throughout history, but just recently with those ones getting up into 2,000-3,000 acre fires. And then more specifically, in JJ's area specifically, I'm sure you can touch on this more, but, a lot of the big fires that seem to pop up on the ridge every five years or so, they're getting up there into the 1 to 2, 3,000 acres occasionally. So 5 isn't super out of the realm, but it was definitely the biggest one in recent memory for the area.
Yeah. And I think it just was attributable to what we were talking about before. It was just how dry it was and how much you had to really, really babysit it. If you're not there every single day, really babysitting it, and then we get those high winds and the embers being deposited over the line from high winds and burning leaves. Any of these could have easily blown up like that. But yeah, like I said, we weren't down on that one, so we don't know all the exact details of everything. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty complex fire, especially involving 2 different states and multiple agencies.
Sure. Yeah, I will say though, the same day that that Jennings Creek fire did what we call blow up and start growing large is the same day that the White House fire started and ended up ultimately going almost 300-400 acres that night as well.
Yeah, so that was intense.
Yeah,
and before we move on to the White House fire, Jennings Creek was right up along or nearby Greenwood Lake.
Yeah, it was. I believe it was Greenwood Lake, kind of Sterling State Forest. So started in parkland.
Nice area.
Yeah,
and you guys were doing water drops.
Yeah, they did a lot of water drops. I think they did the Blackhawks on that one as well.
Yeah, picking up water out of the lake, Greenwood Lake. Yeah.
Luckily, it wasn't Reservoir Lake, like the White House. Jesus.
So was that easier for you being down next to Greenwood Lake to try to contain that fire with water more accessible?
I mean, the turnaround time for where the ship can grab the water from to where it needs to drop it, and it definitely helps when the lake is right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then compared to like the reservoirs, there's a lot of regulations with pulling out of the reservoirs that DEP makes the state comply with, as far as just, not trying to spread invasives and all that. So not having as many regulations also helps.
So how many ships were involved then in the Jennings Creek fire pulling water out of Greenwood Lake? Do you know?
That I'm not sure. I mean, there's definitely a fair amount.
Yeah, definitely a couple state police, and then I know a couple Chinooks got ordered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
How much, on average, how much water are they able to do per drop?
It depends on the size of the bucket and the capability of the helicopter. I mean, it could be anywhere from 100 to 300 to a few thousand gallons, depending on the capability.
Well, you guys are battling with 5,000 gallons compared to Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, usually the Hueys that we're using, we're getting like 300 or so gallons, and it's it's not like we're not. When we call for bucket drops, we don't really expect the bucket to put out the fire. Essentially, it's buying us extra time to get around it and to really just slow it down, or kind of wet it down a little bit, just to buy us time. Essentially, is what we're using it for, which is very helpful. But there's no expectation that's going to put it out.
Yeah, 300 gallons seems like a drop.
300,000 gallons.
Yeah. But just 300, right? That's what you said.
Most of the buckets, with like the.
Okay.
It would take an afternoon to fill up my pool at 300 gallons of crack. So.
Crazy.
All right, you guys want to talk about White House?
Yeah. So we're talking about the Catskills. A lot of people were confused with the White House fire because they thought it would be called like the Bengal Hill and stuff like that. But it's over towards the Peekamoose area. We're talking about the Peekamoose corridor, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I was the first one on scene. I named it, so I'll go behind my reasoning. But
Nice.
basically,
that's what we want to hear.
Right.
White House.
It's very important when you name the fire.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was over at our Ranger cache in Summitville. I was with Lieutenant Slade and Ranger Kreff that day. We were refurbing we have these fire trailers that are full with a bunch of fire equipment. So the goal is to kind of get those things back up and running just in case new starts happen, as they did later that evening. JJ was still running his fire. We were just trying to get stuff ready. We were hearing it was super, super hot, dry, windy that day. So we were hearing multiple small brush fires over the radio all day that the local fire departments all over the county were responding to. One of them, the first one that we ended up responding to that day, was Ranger Kreff. So he got called away from Summitville, and one started right at the intersection of Peekamoose Road, that sundown area, and 55, right there outside of Grahamsville. So he got dispatched to that one. I think that ended up being like 5 or 6 acres that afternoon. He ended up getting around it pretty quickly with the local departments. So Slade and I ended up finishing that trailer, and then I got sent to go help Kraft with that fire. As I'm driving down 55, I hear a call over the radio again. It's like, hey, smoke column, somebody's reporting a smoke column in the woods in Peekamoose. So I'm like, is it the same fire? Is it something different? So show up at Kraft's fire. It was like, hey, you guys all good? I'm going to go check out and see what this other one is. So end up driving down Peekamoose Road, going toward the Blue Hole area from Grahamsville, and come around one of the corners, and let's just see a large column of smoke. So it's like, okay, yep, we definitely got something. Start thinking about calling resources and what I'm going to need and where it is, looking at maps, seeing where it's going. So I arrive on scene. The structure was like already engulfed. So it's like at that point, it's like, all right, this is good. And the fire's like out of sight up the ridge. So it's like, I'm estimating the thing's already 20 acres by the time I got on scene.
Wow.
10 minutes after it was called in. So right after I got there, a handful of the local departments that peeled away from the fire just down the road showed up. They started doing their stuff. I kind of gave them some basic guidance on, hey, start securing this area, watch the structure. They know what to do with structures far better than I do. And then I basically just started walking around the fire to size it up and just see where it's going and what it's doing and what it looks like. So just above Peekamoose Road is White House Road. So by the time I got there, and basically at that moment, you're like, you got to name the fire and start calling stuff into dispatch. So it's like, without thinking about it too much, it's too far away from Bengal Hill. I'm not going to call it the Peekamoose Road fire, because that's sometimes naming it after a road gets confusing, and it's too far away from the Blue Hole. It's like, I'm standing on White House Road and I'm standing next to a White House. It's the White House fire.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. Now, when you first come upon this and you can't did you know what general direction this flowed in? Like with the winds flowing to the east? Because I remember this pushed more towards the east. Were you like anticipating this beforehand?
Yeah, so start pulling up that map and sizing up the fire, and it's like looking at that terrain and looking at the wind. You have a pretty good idea where it's going to go. So where I'm standing on when I first got there on Pikamoose Road, it's like I'm looking at my map. I got 1,100 feet of elevation gain straight up the hill from me. So it's like, that thing's going to run to the top of the ridge even without the wind. But with the wind also pushing it up there, I knew it was going that way. So things to consider is White House Road had dozens of structures on it that people are in. So now you're starting to think about getting evacuations going because the fire is moving very quickly. It's getting dark soon. You got to start worrying about accounting for resources and where they are and what you have them doing. So a lot of it's starting to come into play very, very quickly in a fire like this one. But yeah, looking at the terrain and the wind and the map and trying to get an idea of where it's going to go is a major part of that.
That's tough, especially, you got to hike up going from the Pikamoose area to Bengal Hill is not a difficult hike. It's a nice hike, to be honest, but going over from the White House area that I researched when this was happening, I was just like, oh, wow, that's pretty significant gain. And then, of course, you got to call the volunteer fire departments, which, I got to admit, aren't as physically capable as you guys are sometimes, but then they also deploy people that are physically capable. So do you want to, not to diss the volunteer fire departments, but like, do you want to call like how that happened with the volunteer areas? Like are they willing to jump in like 100%, or like are they hesitant?
I mean, for that night, we definitely 100% needed their full support. They're vital. They were vital to that mission, and primarily for structure protection. I wasn't there that first night, but it blew up to like 400 acres in one night, and,
wow.
and the wind was ripping. It was 40-mile-per-hour winds, and Eric, Ranger Horn, and Stratton and Slade. Howard Kraft, Russell, and Franciscina over
Russell.
there, and they spent the whole night there, and those houses would have been lost if they weren't there, and without the support of the fire department. And so maybe you can talk about that a little bit, but they were vital for protecting those houses there.
Yeah, we love the volunteer fire guys, and it's like you pick the ones that are super gung ho and are willing to do certain missions and with safety in mind. So it's like everybody finds the role. For sure. But I ended up, walking at some point, like later in the evening, like 9-10 o'clock, I walked around that whole fire, and I think it was like 100 acres at the time. And we were coming up with plans. At that point, Howard had transitioned because it's his core area that he specifically covers and builds those relationships with. So at that point, we had transitioned to Howard Kraft as the incident commander. And then I took over more of like an operations role, coming up with, the wildland fire tactics specifically and helping him out with that and starting with coordination. Howard knew that he was going to have to be the incident commander the next day. So he ended up going home, I don't know, like 2 a.m. or so. Ranger Stratton and I ended up staying all night with a handful of local fire departments. And the primary mission at that point, like we talked earlier, going indirect. It's like with the 40+ mile-an-hour winds just ripping that fire across the ridge. The flame lengths were more than that 4 feet at certain points. So it's like we weren't getting a leaf blower flying around it. And at that point, we're thinking big picture, days in advance of what we're doing. So the goal that night was structure protection. If we weren't there, I mean, dozens of houses probably would have been lost through that first night. But we ended up saving every structure with the help of those volunteers. Howard came back the next day. He took over for a bit. JJ ended up being incident commander after that. And again, we just went in and did what we had to do. And
and it was really, really great. This was a big fire. I mean, when we compare it to like California and Western fires, it's a very small fire. It's nothing compared to what was happening in California, but definitely for the Catskills to burn like that.
Yeah,
and
especially
many structures were the population is a lot lower than in a lot of other places too. So, but there's still several structures, several roads that were impacted and threatened, and but that's big. 400 acres to blow up overnight for the Catskills is a big, significant fire with multiple structures threatened, and all the volunteer firefighters they all showed up, and again working with the other agencies and the state agencies and county, Ulster County. And this also, it was in Ulster County, but it's interesting because like the Sullivan County Fire District is responsible for that area because just based on the lay of the land over there, it's easier for them to respond.
Yeah, from Grahamsville than it is from Olive.
Because Grahamsville's on the Sullivan County side, but they cover that part of Ulster County. So that's their fire district. So we're working with Sullivan County fire coordinators, Ulster County fire coordinators. It's different type of state and town and local resources to get all this together, and it's a big effort to organize all that, and we did it. It was really successful. I was really happy with the way that it played out, and like Eric said, we did have to go indirect, not only because of some of the flame lengths. During the day, the flame lengths really weren't that bad. When the winds kind of died down, it was still like under 4 feet most of the time. But based on the topography and then how quickly it was moving, we were able to find a route where we used the bulldozer from the end of Brooks Hill Road, and then tied in with the Bengal Hill Trail. So we had to do a dozer line from the end of that road, and then kind of found a way to get to the trail, Bengal Hill Trail, and then we tied in with Bengal Hill Trail, and then improved that whole section from close to the top of Bengal Hill down to Peekamoose Road. So we just had to improve that, so we didn't impact the land at all, really.
Oh, nice. Now it's going to become a 1-person trail to a 3-person or a 4-person trail, actually.
Yeah. There's a nice trail down there now. And this was, we also used the strategy of fighting fire with fire. And so whenever we dig line away from the fire edge, in order to call it good, it has to be black, and so basically burned. And so we're constructing the line some distance away from the fire edge, and then we burn it in a controlled way, called a back burn, essentially to burn the fuel and then hit the fire edge so that it becomes completely black,
like a pre-burn.
Yeah, we call it either a burnout if it's like a small scale, it's close to the fire edge, or like a full-blown back burn that's a little larger way to do it with in a controlled way.
Yeah.
So let's jump back to the bulldozer and the path that you cut in with the bulldozer. What do you call that? The area that you cut out?
A dozer line.
The dozer line. Did the fire ever jump over your dozer line?
Nope, it held. Yeah. Everything held. Yeah. It was like
nice.
Everything that we did worked for this fire.
Gotcha.
It was really awesome.
Super well coordinated fire.
A lot can go wrong with that. Too.
Sure. I mean, you're dealing with the fire. It's not generally, it will go with the wind and other things, and the wind direction changes. How long was the dozer line in terms of feet or miles?
Well, we had a couple dozer lines. The one from the road, from the top of Brooks Hill Road to Bengal Hill, maybe a mile or less.
Yeah, probably less.
Wow.
Yeah.
Under a mile, because we were able to find a fairly direct route and then kind of looped around a little bit.
Gotcha.
It's a little complicated with the terrain and everything, but we're able to keep it to that. And then that weekend we basically made that control line all the way around as much as we could. Made that connection, that dozer line to the Bengal Hill Trail, and then we made another dozer line towards White House Road to go behind all the houses, and then hand line around other houses, and then just make a hand line behind all the houses on Peekamoose Road so that all those houses were protected, and then just burned everything in between. And
wow.
And it all went really smooth. It was really great.
How long does it take somebody to cut a dozer line in that area?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Yeah. Is it like are you inching along, or is it, the guy going fast? I mean, what's the rate of destruction?
Yeah, for this one, I actually was the what we call the dozer boss for that particular part. So you kind of have to scout it out, and then you obviously safety is number one for everything that we do. A lot can go wrong with a dozer pushing down trees and stuff too. So you need to go slow enough that you're safe. You need to have visibility with the dozer operator. You need to be able to communicate with them with hand signals and lights, or we have to work all that out. But yeah, it depends on the terrain. In this case, we actually started. You need to have some local knowledge too, and I actually was able to tie in with one of the locals who knew that private piece that we were going through first. And there were actually some old wood roads that we used to tie into first. So it didn't have much impact at all. Basically just improving. Our lights just turned off.
I saw that. You got a motion sensor.
The state of New York is officially bankrupt. They haven't paid their electric bill.
Screw the DEC, Forest Rangers.
Oops, nope, I see Elon Musk in the background.
Yep. Yeah. So basically, it depends on the terrain. And in this case, we were improving an old woods road that was there already, so it didn't take that long. But then we had to go down to an area that didn't have any road on it. But I mean, to go from that road to the Bangor Hill Trail, it took this dozer operator a couple hours.
Wow.
I would say, but he was really good.
Where'd he come from?
Who operates that?
Local, he was from the town of Neversink. I think it was actually the town of Neversink supervisor. He was awesome.
He's getting reelected, I guess.
He did a really great job.
What size dozer is it? Is it like a D10? What does he use?
It was a smaller dozer. It was a small dozer. I forget the name, but it was a small dozer. We didn't need like a giant one for this.
Gotcha.
But like he made it so smooth that we're able to drive like a 3/4 ton pickup truck back there.
Wow.
Okay. So here I've got two big questions. I'm going to throw one of them at you now. So we have this big fire, the White House fire. What are we going to see this spring when we go hiking through there? What evidence of the fire are we likely to see, and how long is it going to take for that area to regenerate for any of the fire damage that was caused?
I think honestly, most of the fire was like a lower intensity fire that wasn't nuking anything out.
It's going to be really good for the landscape.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
As far as it being visible, I mean, with the leaf litter that came down probably and all the wind blowing stuff around, you probably would barely even notice that it happened, honestly.
I mean, you're going to see evidence of that dozer line that hits the trail. That's probably going to be there for a while. But it's kind of minimal, the amount that was on there. We kind of improved. We're able to improve an old woods road on private property and for most of it. And then the part on state land is minimal. You're going to notice that, but it's once you get to the trail, if you stay on the trail, you're not going to notice anything really.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be very green. It's probably very good for this.
Yeah, it's going to maybe be invigorating to the area, getting rid of some of that underbrush and dead, material. I know in the Gunks, they do a lot of those controlled burns as a fire prevention mechanism.
They used to, yeah. They haven't done that recently. I want them to do. I would love to do.
Yeah.
Even with the thorns come back and they're horrible though.
Yeah. Stosh is worried about the thorns. I'm worried about the mountain laurel and the rhododendron, but in the huckleberry. No, I think I seem to recall, at least in the last 5-6 years, the preserve was doing some controlled burns. I don't know if they do it more often than other areas or not.
You mean like in Minnewaska or
over in the Mohonk Preserve area?
Mohonk Preserve. I know they used to. They haven't done that in a long time.
Okay.
But I know that they have in the past, and I would love for them to do that again.
Yeah.
We'd like to be a part of that.
So when you say you would love for them to do it again, why don't we see controlled burns in the Catskills?
In the Catskills specifically, so prescribed fire, like huge proponent of prescribed fire. As rangers, we do it all over the state, specifically a lot in Long Island. We did some in Dutchess County earlier this year. But as far as inside the blue line of the Adirondacks or the Catskills, just for that forever wild clause, we will never be able to introduce fire.
Gotcha.
By law,
by the law, yeah.
South of that, controlling it would be absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's just part of the Forever Wild.
Yeah. It's not like a super fire, compared to like you think of a ridge in Montana or Yellowstone, or even, the Gunks is more of a fire prone landscape locally. The Catskills aren't as necessarily like it's not dependent. Like fires happen there and they burn, but it's not like.
Yeah. Well, you say that, Ranger Horn, but we've had a few people on the show talking about the old fire towers, right? I mean, there was a period of time where there were apparently fires in the Catskills, maybe not as many recently, but with this White House fire, do you have a sense if it would have been caught earlier had there still been fire towers in use?
No, because I mean, it really couldn't have been. We couldn't have responded, I don't think, any quicker with me hearing the call being like 2 minutes away, like literally, because sometimes Pikamoose, Ranger could be an hour or more away, but it just so happened to be that a fire was 2 miles down the road. So it's like the response time was like unprecedentedly fast for that particular one.
Yeah.
Even with the fire towers, I mean, if somebody even would have seen it, it was getting dark. It would have been tough to paint the picture of trying to say.
I gotcha.
So the parameters of the fire follow, the fuels, the weather, and the topography. And so in this particular case, that combination, that fire was growing to 400 acres, regardless of what we were doing or where we were. Just because of the 40-mile-per-hour winds, how dry it was, and then the topography, and it's swirling around like that. There's not much.
Yeah, when you say 400 acres, I think of when I grew up in southwestern New York on woodlands. We owned just over 200 acres. So you're basically telling me that my folks' property would have burnt up overnight.
400 acres, 400 football fields, roughly.
Yeah, it's to me, it's
400 football. Wow.
Yeah, that's wild. I know when we first bought that land, my dad did bring in a bulldozer and he did cut fire breaks through the property.
Good thing to do.
Yeah, we never had a fire on the land, but we were pretty good with that. So how many days were you guys fighting this White House fire?
Weeks.
Yeah, weeks.
Yeah. That's nuts.
Weeks.
Was there any fatigue setting in? I mean, you just seemed to go from one incident to another this fall.
Right. And that's what it was. I mean, it happens. I like to stay busy, and so I mean, we're not working like that all the time. So, we were going for a full month, like full throttle, a full month where you're like working long hours every single day. You're getting some days off, and management was good at like looking at that and making sure that we're staying as rested as we could. But yeah, I mean, it does kind of pile up on you, kind of sneaks up on you. But we're all good. We're all self-aware too, and we're not going to push ourselves so much where it's going to be unsafe. But yeah, we look out for each other. But yeah, it was pretty taxing for sure. It was a long haul.
Kind of talking about taxing and taxes. You guys get overtime for this?
We do.
Yeah. So was 2024 a pretty good year for you guys with all these fires?
Yeah.
You don't have to admit. I'll take it from the grins that the holidays were pretty happy around the households.
Yeah, but there's always give and take with that. And I have two little kids at home and a wife that I didn't see very much. And you make sacrifices. I make a lot of sacrifices for this job.
I can imagine.
And, we work very hard, but you miss birthdays, you miss a lot of weekends, you miss some family outings, and
you get called out on Easter Sunday, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
you save a life.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's and ultimately why we everybody that does this job, it's like most of us, if you picked any ranger, it'd be like, oh, I've always wanted to be a ranger kind of thing. So it's what you're getting into when you sign up for this job. They make it very clear as you're going through that hiring process, as they're trying to weed folks out. Like, this is what you're getting into. You might not understand it yet, but you will. Like, they beat it into you again in the academy. And then as soon as you get out, it's like you still see all these incidents and you know what you're getting into. But I mean, I don't think I'd really trade it for anything. I mean, I love doing the job, and it's rewarding to me to be able to respond to all this stuff. And, I truly enjoy going out and fighting the fire and helping, carrying that dude off the side of the mountain or whatever it may be. It's, to me, I do really like it.
And we don't, nobody takes this job to get rich. You can earn more money doing other things.
for
Do you
sure.
ever get any like feedback, like emails, voicemails, stuff like that from people that you've rescued that are like, my God, you saved my life. This is amazing. I really thank you. And then you're just like humble as heck.
Occasionally, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's
Okay.
write a nice letter or like a phone call, which is really meaningful and humbling. Like you said, it definitely it makes you feel good about the incident overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, going through the year, I mean, it's just like what we were talking about. It's between searches, rescues, swiftwater assignments, the hoist rescues. All of a sudden, we're getting into this super busy month plus long stretch of fire with the recoveries in between, and then going back to fire. But yeah, I mean, it's
right. Yeah. So now, since we talked about it all, you could see like that Witch's Hole incident happened in between the Mount Zion and Plattekill fire and the White House fire.
And then that was the day before that Popple Hill fire, which we were also out until 4 a.m. on, literally the next day.
Right, Popple Hill. After we kind of like White House was still going on, but like it was already fully contained, and like we're just working on mopping up the White House fire. But then we got this other new start over at the end of Trails End Road, over by the lawn path by Verneuil Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And Spencer Road back there. There was a plume of smoke that was seen actually from Minnewaska. Some of our counterparts in Minnewaska. He sent me a picture and a text. He's like, "Hey, we're seeing this plume of smoke from over here. Do you guys know about it?" And I was like, "No, I'm not that far from there, and I can't see it." So yeah, it took a little while to actually find it because like where it was positioned and the topography over there. Yeah, it's over by like Flat Hill area.
Yeah, we ended up, just of some of the other things that we do as rangers is we also have rangers that do drone work. So Ranger Martin and Ranger Francisquina for our area are certified drone operators. So they're given these highly technical drones that have thermal capabilities. So Francisquina was able to take his drone up and use the thermals and actually pinpoint the fire and get us coordinates so we could hike in and find it.
I'm so old school. I was just going to ask you guys like take a helicopter up there to look for it. No, you're just pulling like a drone out of the back of the truck and
yeah. Well, actually, it almost came down to actually triangulating where it was because like when you're on the main trail at the end of Trails End Road, you can't see it or smell it. You drive in on the back road on Spencer Road that pops out on Diamond Road on the town of Denning side. You can't see it or smell it. But then you can see it from further away, and I was like, where is this thing? And yeah, we ended up picking it up with the drone, but I got close to we almost had to triangulate with a compass, which we're trained to do. You shoot an azimuth from 2 different locations and plot it on the map, and where the lines intersect. Then
that's in the old days. I understand that's what they did with the fire towers.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We have a really cool map in one of our field stations that shows that, which is pretty cool.
It's amazing once again what you guys do with not just rescue but firefighting and stuff like that. With what we've had in the past year, 2024 has been a crazy year for New York State. So it's just I once again appreciate what you guys do and just everything that goes on with the joining us here on the podcast, and just any times that you have been involved with search and rescue and stuff like that. So hopefully everybody who's listening to the podcast, the 3 or 4 people will appreciate what you get or what you guys do about this. And you're not even smiling for the 3 or 4 people. You're like, God damn, I thought this was like 10,000 people.
Let me say the following, because our listeners don't get to see this, but I find it impressive, how prepared you are and, the level of professionalism you bring to your job and the love you have for it. But the one thing our listeners don't see that I've picked up on early in our video conference tonight is you guys strike me as you're really tight. Okay. This is not just like a job, but it looks like I see how you guys are sitting shoulder to shoulder, smiling. I mean, you're real buddies is what I sense. And you probably really enjoy working together, not just doing what you're doing, but there seems to be a tight bond amongst our DEC Rangers. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, JJ's awesome.
Yeah.
What about Slade? Slade, is he awesome?
Slade's the best supervisor in the state. No questions asked.
What about Dawson? Dawson's a good guy.
Yeah, no,
He's got the toughest area.
Yeah, no, yeah, he deals with a lot. As you notice, several things that we talked about today happened in his county. So,
yeah,
I mean, we do a lot of challenging and difficult things together, and we really have to trust each other. And it happens over time. And yeah, no, you really do need to have some type of trust with the people that you work with when you do these things.
Yeah, they're on the other end of the rope, right? Yeah.
As far as Rangers go, I mean, there's only 130 of us or so in the state. So it's, there's not many of us out for New York's 4 or 5+ million acres of public land. So,
wow,
you got to have a good bond with the people that you work with, because you're going to be seeing them quite a bit.
Yeah. Crazy. So, once again, thank you for joining us tonight. Last question. I know you guys are the southern part of the Catskills, so post-hike brews and bites. Now we always ask about this, where you guys go after kind of like a success story or a hike or something like that. It's got to be Snyder's Tavern.
Yeah, I know. Horn, from the sounds of it, he grew up right around the corner. So
right?
That's probably where he learned how to triangulate and bushwhack, was getting in and out of Snyder's.
I've been a handful of times. That's a good spot. I'm pretty close, but I'd have to give a shout out to the. It seems like me and the guys in the district frequent the High Falls Cafe quite a bit. They have a solid wing night.
High Pulse Cafe.
All right.
High Falls, yeah, just right outside of Stone Ridge. So those guys are good.
That is a first.
Yeah, that's on what, 213? But runs
through there. On 209.
209. Okay. Oh, I know where you are. Yeah.
What about you, Rusher?
I mean, I agree with Horn over there.
Nice.
That was a good wing night. And then other times we're done at like 2 a.m. and like, what's open at 2 a.m. You have to find a diner that's open.
Yeah, the diner in Tannersville, the diner in New Paltz.
Yeah, it's
working all night, and then like you get done with a complicated incident, but you like didn't eat like a real dinner, and you're hungry, and you still got some adrenaline going, so you don't feel like going home just yet, but you need to get something in you. But so sometimes the 2 a.m. diner is kind of limited in the area.
Yeah.
And you just want a massive burger or something like that, or some crispy chicken or something like that.
Yeah. But one time we had to go to Domino's. And,
that was.
And then you go to sleep right after. And then you wake up and don't feel so great. But
right. Yeah. We have Domino's here, and I'm just like, God, that was so delicious. And then you're like, I totally regret that decision.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to add before we end the show?
Just throw one thing out there. I mean, JJ's number, my phone number, every ranger in the state's phone number is posted right on DEC's website. We're always fielding questions. If you're interested in the ranger job, you want to reach out to a ranger in your area, just give any one of us a call. We're happy to talk about the job like we did tonight, and all the details, or just any general hiking question. All our info is posted online.
Once again, thank you for what you guys do, and thank you for Jeff for hooking us up and having this conversation, because not only do we cover incidents, we cover fire incidents and stuff like that. It's been a phenomenal time. I wish we could have met in person, but we'll do that another time. Let's see what 2025 brings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so thanks a lot for having us.
Yeah, thanks for taking your time out, sitting at the DEC area instead of,
Yeah, we don't like going to the office too much. We like being in the woods better.
It's the most amount of time I spent in the office in a while.
Well, that's good. Yeah. I will say that's good. Yeah. All right. So have a good night, guys. Hopefully to see you guys again in the future.
Sounds good.
Right, yeah, have a good night.
Thank you for all you do, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yep, bye, everyone.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. Livin.
Wicked, 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 wicked.